Ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bá jó, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bá jó, olúwa mi ò dìde ojú
The Ashen Forge. The Ashen Forge.
Hello and welcome to the Ashen Forge. I am Phantom X, joined as always by Diggs and the legendary Neurotoxin. How are you two doing?
Doing all right.
Great.
Happy Sunday evening. Hopefully it was a good week.
Yep.
Busy.
Yeah. Playing anything fun?
Same thing.
Same thing you're playing?
Lord of the Rings.
Not the same. I'm not playing that, but same
Yeah.
thing I was playing the last time.
Mm-hmm.
Still fun. Starting to get more of my friends playing it now. So
Even more
progress.
fun.
Yeah.
Well, we still have quite a bit from the live stream that we've not really been able to get to because the Ranger combat was such a big discussion. I posted my sort of mini rant on. So we actually do have a TikTok that I'll put some of the YouTube shorts on, and you know, it usually is like 200, 400 views, but I posted the one on a blacklist. So if you get PK'd, and that seems to be a very interesting topic that people either love or hate. And so that was like a mini blow up on TikTok. But anyways, I think we were going to start off tonight. There was an initial question. They always take a YouTube question, and it was on solo gameplay. Essentially, someone saying, yeah, I like kind of having random encounters where I might need to help somebody, you know, a world quest, something like that. And yeah, I kind of like guilds. But what about solo?
But I think the interesting thing is they said, yeah, they like to interact and socialize, and they'll meet up with people. They just don't like guilds outside of the stuff. So they have certain stuff that they like to do socially and with groups, and other stuff that they don't like to do. So then Steven's question to me was very interesting because it went all over the place and didn't really answer the question, I think, until maybe at the very end. But keep going.
Well, that was essentially it felt very reminiscent. You know, we've been doing this. This is what, episode 76. So we've been doing this for several years now. And we always used to joke that early on, Stephen kind of would say yes to everything, sort of give you an answer that is yes. And this felt very much like that. And like how he used to do it in the past. Now, you know, more recently, it's been, I think, clearly a much more targeted audience. But this felt kind of a throwback to that sort of roundabout answer of yes, maybe, I think we'll do it for you. But
yeah, and again, it's interesting to me because this is the way I think of solo, which means that I don't like being in a group because I don't want to be stuck with the group. Typically what's happened is that you know, once I'm in a group, they want you to keep and stay with them for, you know, fight after fight after fight, or quest after quest after quest, and I might like to help out for a little bit and then go do something else. And that's what this person seemed to be saying to me, that they like randomly running into other people, doing stuff with them, and then possibly leaving, and they don't necessarily want to be with a guild. But right, solo just means you're not formally in a group. It doesn't mean you're not socializing, is what I got out of the question. Anyway, go ahead, Nero.
Yeah, so I just reread it real quick here, and it's always just a bit of a head scratcher because by the time I get from the beginning to the end of that arc, it's like, wow, he definitely explained what it is to be a solo player in an MMORPG. That is exactly what he, you know. And so while that is what he explained and pointed out, like, yeah, I mean, that's that's playing as a solo character in an MMO, right down to where you might not be part of a guild, but you're still part of, you know, pseudo factions and other groups of interests and stuff like that. It's like, oh, you mean like the reputation system in WoW, where everywhere you go, there's a different reputation or two that you're managing as well. But no, I say that kind of in jest because I don't think that was exactly what he was trying to communicate there. I think it's the idea that, yeah, there are going to be some benefits to playing solo. Like you said, you're always going to be able to keep all of the loot that you find. So if dropped items are fairly infrequent and, fairly worthwhile, then it could be that playing solo does help somebody kind of, earn money a little bit faster in some ways. But I don't know how much of that there's going to be. All of the actual economics of the game and gameplay is, to me, still very much up in the air, because I know what we're going to see is not what we saw in Alpha 1, but what we are going to see, question marks, it's nebulous. So it'll really depend on a lot of factors of like how the gameplay goes and the economy of things and such to really determine what the value is of being solo and the trade-off of not having a guild. Like, yeah, you don't have to spend the time with it. You might have just been able to be a passive member for the most part anyway. But what are the features and ways to kit yourself out and customize that are inaccessible because you don't have that level of affiliation. The other thing that kind of makes me think of just for a moment is a document I wrote back in 2014 while we were waiting for EverQuest Next stuff to come around. That was about breaking away from guilds and having group organizations, having different sorts of allegiances for different reasons, that you would have trade skills as a separate sort of group or guild than your adventuring group, and that would be a separate allegiance than where you live and like the local and regional sort of affiliations. And so that sort of thing, I feel like we're almost on the cusp of having something like that, where you're still not going to be able to get the full set of abilities and features if you're not a member of a guild, but that you might be able to get most of that sort of stuff from potentially some of the other affiliations and such that you have. We'll see.
Yeah, and
Everything's still putty and nothing is solid.
Yeah. So when is the game gonna release? I think one of the things that might not have been covered in the answer is because lots of people hear solo and they think that you're antisocial and don't want to do anything. You just want to play the game all by yourself, which is not what this person said. And I think one of the concerns is if I'm in a battle with the world boss and there's guilds fighting the world boss and there's groups fighting the world boss, and I'm also fighting, but I'm fighting with them, but I haven't joined a group and I'm not part of the guild, what kind of loot do I get?
None.
Because I participated, I helped kill the world boss or do whatever. What kind of loot am I getting from that?
None, right?
That seems to be
It's
okay.
based off
So
damage.
here's something that I'm wondering though. How much do you get that isn't loot? What other things do you get from participating? Do you get reputation and other recognition for having participated, such that the next time that boss comes around, you come again, you do it 10 times or whatever, the second cousin twice removed of the third generation of the boss, you know them very well. You've built up that reputation as a whatever it is slayer, And so even though you've never actually gotten a chance to get that loot, the fact that you've been able to continually get more powerful at it could be the sort of thing where then you can say, hey, you guys think you're going to take that down? Not without me, you're not. Now, I can either sit here on the sidelines as a jerk, or you can pay me to be the hero that I should be and cut me in. What do you say? And I think that's the sort of thing where there might be some other sorts of interests, or otherwise that maybe you get a quest that other people don't because you've built up that reputation in that way. So,
yeah, and
interesting.
Kind of in my mind, it seems like there might not be from one. Let's say it's the Winter Dragon world boss. There's only so many eyes it's going to have. There's only so many horns. There's only so many teeth and nails that it's going to have, but it should have a lot of dragon scales, and I should be able to get a few of those, at least one, and be able to do something interesting with it.
But you won't. But you won't, right? Because it's all, as far as we know, it's...
I don't know that.
Ownage of loot's... I thought the ownage of loot's based off percent damage done, right? With a bonus of whoever targets it first.
Sure. So I should still be able to get a dragon scale out of that. I'm not expecting to get something like a horn or an eye, but I should be able to get the dragon scale.
Yeah, I mean, that is the difficulty. You think of other worlds, where you would just sort of auto join a raid guild, and here you can't. Or a raid, not a guild, but for a world boss. It does leave solo players sort of out of luck, I guess.
Well, again, we don't know that because, again, as Nero said, we don't know what other kinds of stuff besides loot you can get. There could be other awards or reputation stuff, and most likely, since there is a reputation system, I would imagine that would count for something in terms of reputation. That is one of the things that we need to pay attention to. At least in the back of our minds, is how reputation works, not only with your node, but again, we got to the end of Steven's long, convoluted answer, and he did mention social organizations. There's religions, there's other stuff that, and kind of types of social groups and horizontal progression that you can go through. That's not just grouping with players per se. So there's stuff for organizations for people to belong to and groups for people to belong to that's not just player groups.
I wonder how easy, though, in the long run, because the way I sort of, when I think of this question, I think of the mob difficulty, right? Am I able to solo things, or am I going to need a group? But, as a solo player, because I've been thinking about this lately with all of this PvP discussion, like how, I've always envisioned the freehold with the farm, and that's sort of my, occasional PvP if I have to save my airspace, PvE. But I start to wonder how viable I guess it all depends on your goals as a solo player, because there definitely seems that there's going to need to be group interaction specifically for the things I want to do, whether that's caravans and that sort of stuff. No, it's
yeah. I mean, there is stuff that's going to be mandatory to do as a group. The equivalent of doing solo caravans is literally just packing your bags to the brims and hauling ass across to wherever to dump your stuff. And no, it's not going to be on the same scale and story magnitude of doing a caravan, but at the same time, you're also not going to have the same limitations, and it could be the fact that you're so used to hauling and your good routes and everything that when war is declared somewhere and some bougie bureaucrat wants to get his share out of there, you can get hired to smuggle it out of the what would otherwise be claimed for the war coffers.
Yeah.
Well, but individuals can join caravans raids.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you sure can. You sure can, and I'm sure you'll be able to hire plenty of guards and stuff too, if you're going that route as well. So whoever else is going to be joining on top of that is great.
It would be really fun if, as part of the monster coin system, like if you weren't forced into combating, fighting against players, if you could just harvest, turn into a monster, disguise yourself, run back to wherever you got to go, and then undisguise yourself. That'd probably be a waste of a monster coin, but we don't yet know what they're going to cost. So, well, Nura, I know you also wanted to. There was a thread on ammunition. I know we mentioned you wanting to talk about this. One of the I think positives that came out of the Ranger discussion was this sort of leaving behind the need to make arrows, make bullets, different types, and keep them stocked all the time. The thread that was specifically posted was actually in favor of keeping it because of the economy, I think I'm trying to remember the gist of the thread, that, it forced people to harvest wood and craft arrows, and it sort of kept an economy running.
Yeah, that's exactly why we shouldn't be making ammo. That's 100% of the reason. The big one, more than storage space, the fact that you have to have people struggling to make these trifling things that have to keep being made over and over and over. And it really irks me on a level too. I think about this with Dungeons and Dragons. All right, I started with 20 bolts in my bow, or 20 bolts in my crossbow. How about you? Oh, well, I can shoot a firebolt that goes 120 feet. Well, great. Is that like a 60 120? No, it's just a flat 120. There's no half range. Oh, well, cool. How much damage does it do? Oh, it does more than your crossbow. Yeah, it's cool. You can only cast it a couple times a day, though, right? No, it's a cantrip. I can cast it every round. Yeah, about that ammo thing. That really sucks. So, I extrapolate that to an MMO. It's an unnecessary thing to track. I like the idea of being able to have something that augments your ranged weapon with an extra set of attributes. I believe I explained about this on the last episode, but just a quick brief on that again. Having the quiver as your attribute container and your bow or your crossbow or whatever as your other attribute container. I like that for the sake of mixing and matching. But I don't like having to keep that damn quiver full of stupid trifling arrows. And if there's going to be things where corruption builds up and ensues, the more you over harvest, I really don't want to incentivize over harvesting to make trifling little arrows for everyone. I think what would end up happening is we would just not use bows and we'd use wands, unless wands have an ammo source too.
Yeah, and I think it kind of, and I think you were kind of saying this, but you didn't say it explicitly. It's a specific detriment just for bows.
Yes.
People who are wielding daggers and other blades, and I mean, maybe if you lose your spear and you have to craft a new spear every time you throw it, mages.
But that would be a standard item.
Yeah, mages have unlimited ammo, basically. So it's just this poor slob of a ranger who has to do management control on inventory control with their, that's not cool.
Yep.
What bards are the bards strings gonna break? So you have to keep remaking guitar strings. Like what?
That's actually very interesting because you could also make more quality instruments. Anyways.
Well, rule of cool and rule of fun. What is more entertaining? A character who can just keep firing arrows with reckless abandon, shooting down target after target, full on like Orlando Bloom as Legolas, like just everything's perfect shots everywhere. It looks like when you're watching a speedrunner go through a game and just everything's perfect and precise. Do you want that? But something maybe a little toned down because you're actually playing in a balanced environment with other people, or do you want some dude who fires like 10 arrows and it's like, oh crap, I better pull out my short sword because that's all I've got left.
Yeah,
That's
especially
not.
if you have some form of rapid shot, you're going to run out of ammo quickly. Airstrike, doesn't that do a bunch of
Mhm.
arrows at once? So it seems like, or at least multiple.
Oh,
So,
even better. Do it like a first-person shooter where when you kill enemies, they drop ammo boxes that you have to pick up to replenish your quiver. I don't think that's the way either, but that would be kind of a hilarious touch for maybe a game that's trying to take itself a little less seriously.
And I've kind of been just focused on the ranger. We should remind people that any archetype can use any weapon, so it's not just an issue limited with rangers, but it's convenient to talk about it as if so. But yeah, anybody using a bow would be stuck.
And then the weight too. If you're in an MMORPG, actually, have they talked about whether there'll be a weight? There's not, right?
I think there was some recent maybe mention of it, but it was vague and nebulous. I don't think they've really explained what the bag limit, what the weight limit, what the whole set of limitations is going to be. I have to imagine there's going to be some, but to what extent, I don't believe has been revealed yet.
Because that's the other part, especially when you start talking about weapons like guns and bullets like New World and having a class that has to carry more weight just because of the class that they are, which is going to in turn limit what they can carry back home. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I was thinking it was inventory space and not weight, but
that's how it was in A1, but I think that's still one of those like putty, still in the works. It could very well be that it's a two-part sort of thing, that you've got like a general inventory and then part of your artisan equipment is your class inventory or something. And so you've got perhaps like your normal bag and your specialized bag. And so I can carry a bunch of herbs in my herb bag, but I can only carry, a few pockets worth of iron ore before it's like, no, this is taking up too much space. Which also kind of promotes the idea of like in the field trade, if you come across or drop by some enemy that was mining, some rock looking thing, and it's not the thing that you're optimal with, pass it over to somebody else and get some random herb that they got somehow or whatever. I don't know. Maybe not to that level. Maybe it's just put those things on the marketplace.
Well, so I think we can all agree positive movement will have no impact on the economy. If anything, it's probably going to make people want to play it more because it's just going to be more quality of life style. So I can say that Lord of the Rings. So if anybody wants to play Lord of the Rings online, just let us know. There's a channel in Discord. I started playing that Terran Gosh week ago now. Maybe not quite, but anyways, I primarily have mained a ranger right now. I'm probably driven by the watching the Ashes Ranger, but it's been quite fun. So yeah.
If I can even find my ancient login from like the early days, I think I still have like
playing from 2008.
My Super account. Legacy Hobbit Burglar or whatever. Also, by the way, none of the Lord of the Rings stuff is or ever will be a sponsor of the channel. So when we talk about it, just now and forever, not a sponsor.
I looked so because I actually did beta testing for it way back in what is that 2006. So my account was created on release, which was 2007. Which I was telling Diggs beforehand. It's really interesting because my characters are older than my kids, so by a couple of years. So that's how old that account was. But anyways, yeah. So if anybody wants to, we're just having a lot of fun. There's actually a lot of cool elements that I'd love to see brought into Ashes. Actually, you can kind of just, I'm going to skip to that right now. So part of it is sort of this idea of horizontal gameplay. We had a big Discord discussion. I'll often talk about doing away with character levels. I don't want to go down that path right now, but branching out other ways to improve as a character, not as a player necessarily, but as a character, and other ways to branch out. And Lord of the Rings Online, has monster play. It's had monster play forever. It also has skirmishes, which you essentially have a pet soldier, and it's a 1 to 3 person sort of mini instance, and you earn tokens from it. But you can get items for your own character, but you also can skill up your soldier, give him new talents, give him new strength and hit points, and improve them as a soldier or as a healer, as a whatever. It's sort of this other sort of gameplay that parallels your main character gameplay, which is, I think, has actually been kind of fun to experience. Similar to what it sounds like the monster play in Ashes will be, with a lot of progression within monster play or, as well.
Yeah, no, that definitely does sound like fun. I mean, I would like to see more of that sort of stuff as content in games in general. Now, I'm always of the mindset that players are content, but you know what else is also fun is if you have players that aren't as committed that are able to access a certain other kind of content. So like a non-subscriber invite system where, they can't communicate with each other in really any way other than maybe gestures and like emotes, but people who can, as free players, maybe with an invitation from a subscribing player, play as enemies and try to, level them up and do things on the battlefield, whether it's against other players or, other players and NPCs or something else. It'd be a fun sort of thing to have. Could be like when there's a raid going on somewhere that monsters are getting involved with, or some other monster invasion event that players log on at a certain time, and they'll potentially rotate around. It would be, the idea is, instead of having an account where the characters are locked to each server, your monster freebie thing, you would just be going to whatever server is going to have the event within like the region that you're in. So you would just be going back and forth. There'd always be content for you to do because there's always monsters being deployed somewhere to do something nefarious. So, that's the sort of thing I would like to see more of in the future. I'm not sure if Ashes would be the right place to do something like exactly that, but it'd be fun to see for sure. And I don't know if the color keeps changing. There is no change to the lighting in my room, so for some reason the camera's freaking out.
It's exciting.
My apologies if that's distracting.
I've not noticed it, so. But I feel like there are so many, that we have all these wonderful blueprints for horizontal gameplay that you could create beyond just the character level and rating at the end. Of course, weapons, weapon leveling, but you have good examples of a monster coin system. You have these skirmishes. I still don't know why no one has ever mimicked EverQuest's AA system, alternate advancement system. You have hundreds upon hundreds of other ways to spend, points post max level, because you continue gaining experience post max level, which I think is another great incentive because you have a reason to go out and keep fighting because you're still gaining experience. And of course, it gets harder and harder over time. You know, EverQuest 2 has really good collection systems in it, and you know, if you just wanted to skip out and do collection quests. Anyways, there's like, I'm waiting for a game that pulls all these things together and does it very well. And I feel like that would be, you know, we have good blueprints for how to make content last longer. So
Yeah, again, we have the social orgs. We have Ashes does. So Ashes has social organizations, religions, naval progression. There's also node progression and racial progression, and those are just the ones that we know about.
yeah, I want to explore that. So I wish we could talk to developers more regularly like we did before, years ago, because I'm so curious why no one has ever implemented the AA system in any other MMO. I guess they did in EQ2, but I mean, that's
It
same.
wasn't, you're saying it wasn't a power creep sort of thing, but you get abilities from other classes, or how did it work? What were you actually getting for it?
I mean, there would be some power creep over time, but each expansion you could have a new set of AAs. It could be anything like weight reduction, but it could be strength. It could be some spell benefit, alliteration. I mean, it could be a number of things, but it allowed you to just customize tremendously, and again, it gave you reason to keep in combat beyond raiding. I feel like now you go play World of Warcraft. I guess there's dailies, but most things, once you reach that max level, you're in your raiding. You're really, the only other reasons you're going out into the world are to get mats for the raids that you're going to participate in, or PvP, or whatever it might be. But having this other advancement system in place, and it can parallel. It doesn't have to start at the end of, at max level. It can go, and EQ2 did that. You could turn it on at a certain point and split your experience both ways.
Yeah, it should not start at max level. It should start way before that. Mm-hmm. But yes.
I kind of think of like Warframe and Destiny 2 when you say about that, because it's basically just, yeah, okay, you get to a certain point where you've built out a full loadout, you've got, a maxed out one of everything that you need for, a good build or something. And now everything else you want to do is, side grades and maybe some things that are a little more powerful in different ways, but take a lot more effort and cost more to use. And so they've got their other trade-offs and limitations. And even though there's been some, power creep a little bit here and there over time in different ways, it's basically when you've gotten, tough enough and you're at max level content, that doesn't mean that you're all set and ready to go. That means great. So you're tough enough to take on some of the more big league stuff, but you still need to actually make a build that works well. And for for both games that I mentioned, there'll be different content that requires you to set things up differently, not only relative to increasing difficulty, but other systems and challenges that the content will present. So I kind of think of that sort of thing that, yeah, you might have gotten a max level, and maybe you've even multi-class and you've gotten a few of the secondary classes up to max level that you can swap between if they do decide to go with that. That doesn't mean that you're maxed out. That doesn't mean that you're, top notch. And nothing necessarily is best in slot. It's just how you're able to mix and match and combine everything with all the abilities and features that are available to make something that's effective enough within, a range that is fairly efficient and useful and fit your play style. So that's a lot of side grades sort of. Yeah, go ahead.
I am also hoping that there's some different types of gear that we're going to want for different biomes. not to the extent that you're going to die if you don't have them, like in Chronicles of Illyria. But yeah, kind of like Batman and how he has different, he has his aquatic costume, and he has his, he used to have a, sky or desert or
Yeah.
Arctic costumes. Yeah, I hope that we're able to, or I hope that we are encouraged to swap out our gear for the various biomes, and I hope it's not just, I hope we have some magical biomes as well.
So I'm looking at this really quickly because I was curious. It's been so long since I've played EverQuest, and I don't know if this is actually accurate, but this is saying at this point classes have anywhere between, it looks like 40 to 60,000 AA points that can be gained and spent. So just talk about extreme customization. I don't know if that's accurate. That sounds like way too much, but I don't know. Well, there was another thread that I wanted to talk about in the forums, which was, I thought was interesting. And I couldn't find anyone actually complaining about this, but there was apparently people are concerned with the amount of mist that was on the ranger play that we saw, and how that will hide characters. Like, it'll be harder to essentially see in some of these spaces because of the environmental effects. And I think part of that too is Steven's base has told us, we're not going to be able to turn them down or off because they want everyone to be on the same playing field when it comes to PvP. I can kind of already tell from looking at both your faces that this is sort of an absurd complaint.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an explorer and someone who likes to stealth, so this is a bonus for me, I would think. Not.
Yeah.
It's a feature, not a bug.
That's always been the guarantee of the game. If you can see it, you can get there, and you can see as far as the eye can see, with the limitation of whatever weather and precipitation is going to get in the way. And so if it's a nice clear day, sure, you'll be able to see stuff nice and far, and you'll be able to see people sneaking around. But hey, if there's heavy rain and it's all foggy and you can only see, 10 feet ahead of you, you're not gonna just be allowed to tab around and see everybody around you. That's ridiculous. They're not going to be able to see you either.
And I have a reason to now have sound up so that you can hear when someone approaches.
Those footsteps in that swampy, soggy, wet. Yes.
And didn't Chronicles of Illyria have a stank stat?
I don't know. I think you might be thinking of Revival.
Was it Revival?
I believe
yeah,
Revival had
Revival.
a stank.
Yeah, it was Revival. Mm-hmm.
Wait, so you would be alerted to someone if they just smelled off?
Your aromatic state was one of the tags that was affecting your current state of affairs. So if you smell nice and we're all nice and floral, all right, that's great. If you smell like you've been sleeping in garbage, then you'll walk into a restaurant and they might politely or otherwise tell you to get the hell out of there.
Interesting. So would combat make that go up? And I actually have two questions. So how would you get that? Would you have to go roll in shit, or just like normal activity?
I don't know.
Depends. Do you want it, or are you just going to let it happen? Just over time, apparently.
Yeah. And I was thinking of, because there was like a being a drunk or a beggar or something like that. Like I was going to have a alt that was just going to be a beggar.
And and in this scenario, smelling good would give you away as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, yeah.
So you want to be rolling around in leaves or maybe smell like a deer.
Tiggs wanted to
Yeah.
min-max his stank.
For
That's
one
right.
character, I think I was up to like 30 plus alts in revival, so planned alts in revival. So I wanted one to just be that drunk beggar sitting on the stoop.
Fascinating. All right.
Though that is definitely something else. There's, I understand why sight and sound and movement are things that a player is generally expected to be able to see and have communicated through a screen and headphones. But aromas and odor and, smell and kind of having a sense of being upwind and downwind of things, not so much. Not so much. I remember a decade ago, SIGGRAPH, there were a few different companies with their different smell-o-vision devices, and none of them were really very good. I don't think any of them really picked up because I haven't heard much. I told them both what they should do is partner with live streamers so that you can have your chat donate $5 to make it smell like rubber tires and farts or something. But I don't think they ever took me up on it, and that was to their loss. That was just a freebie for them. Oh well. Anyway, the idea that there could be other ways, like if you have a ranger like sense smell, sense aroma sort of thing, to have like maybe a light ring or overlay or something that you get like a little glow of certain kinds in the direction to let you know about what you're kind of smelling that way. That could be an interesting sort of thing. It could be useful for not getting snuck up on, or it could be useful for finding some rare herb that's hard to visually spot.
Yeah, actually,
I was thinking, especially because for monster coins, right? If we're playing as a monster, then they might have alternative indicators of location. But humans being so visual, it's often represented as in our game spaces. It's often represented as a visual cue.
Yes.
Until we can get, aromatic cues.
well,
I don't know if I want to trust game developers with the ability to make me smell things in their game, because WoW had a lot of ogre turds just everywhere. They were fresh.
I don't want to actually smell things, but the character could. And I'm now fascinated by this idea, especially with having a weather system where winds change direction and speed, and also with how that could play into harvesting your crops, taming animals.
Mm-hmm.
Could you train a pet to smell certain things?
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, horizontal gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have about 15 minutes. I think there were some questions. Were there any that stuck out for you, Neuro? They're getting into this really, I think, great habit of doing tons and tons of questions.
So, are you talking about from the actual stream, or are you talking about the answers after?
Either one.
So, there is a confirmation here. Secondary archetypes may be changed, but not on the fly. So, if that's an answer we're getting now in the definitive, then it does sound like you will actually have secondary archetypes available. That is something they're more planning on than not.
Yeah, because that was the question that Maggie made him clarify, right? Because she's like, "That's not what we said before." I was actually trying to find on Wiki what had been said before.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's been said before that you would be changing. You have to go to town to change. That's always been said. before.
Apparently not, because she very specifically ended the question.
No, there was another nuance to that. Not the changing in town. There was another nuance to that she was making sure he clarified. But it's also partially because of the way the question was asked, if I remember correctly.
I don't know. All I know is she ended it with, I just wanted to clarify because it is a little different than what we have said in the past. But yeah, that's one of those quality of life things, I think, to be able to go back to someone and respect. He talks a lot about being prepared. So, I mean, if you're a part of a family and you need to switch to something else, be it for a different type of raid or something, then I think giving us the ability to do that. I know, Diggs, you love alts, but I just would much rather have personally one character that I can switch things around. Maybe with a penalty, maybe with a cost, but
yeah, because you're really playing a player.
We can have this conversation again. Characters can change. People can change. People do change.
Not the way you're suggesting, but.
So here is an interesting one. It was the question from Hartwell. The Kickstarter and summer bundles had emojis and character creation option tiers listed. Are those exclusive to backers? And the answer is the additional character customization items that are included in some Kickstarter packages are not designated as Kickstarter exclusive. So there is a possibility that those items could be offered in a future package. But at this time, they're only available in the Kickstarter packages.
Was that on the forums?
Yeah. This is from the...
the after... Vector, or what's his name?
Yeah.
Huh.
So that's interesting. And it makes me wonder, were they potentially going to sell lifetime subscriptions again? Maybe a little more expensive than the last time.
Everything is subject to change.
Well, now I'm really curious, and I want to go back to their Kickstarter and see what was labeled. I don't know why you would. I mean, if you feel solid in your game, I don't know why you would want to sell lifetime subs again. Unless I guess you could try to factor that in 12 months. Let's say we have 10 years, so 120 months times, I don't know, let's do a discount, $10. So $1,200 for a 10-year subscription.
It might be more of a, we want the people who will commit this upfront to kind of be our lifelong players. And so they pay this now, and they're just going to be part of the content of the game for the rest of the game. Because they don't, they aren't paying on a monthly subscription. They will always be able to play the game.
Well, I'm looking here.
So they will always be content.
Kickstarter exclusive, lifetime subscription.
Is that the only thing it says is exclusive?
No, there's others. Dawnbreaker mount, character royalty costume. I'd have to go back to the others to see. But...
I don't know which ones would and wouldn't actually be.
Yeah, I'm just looking at what I had backed. But... Well, I mean, I don't know. Why can't I find... trying to find all the tiers just to see. I don't know.
Oh yeah, so I was, by the way, reading back through Steven's commentary on respecking, and he's actually talking about spec loadouts, which is a little different than secondary archetypes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not being able to on the fly switch from, say, rogue ranger to rogue cleric, you can only switch your selected.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he was talking about respecing your skill setups.
Oh, right. Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. Because there was the well, I think he actually talked about it during the live stream that you know being able to have a different kit for your your ranged weapons versus your melee weapons. So
Yeah.
instead of like, all right, well, I'm gonna pick 3 bow upgrades and 3 sword upgrades, it's like, all right, when I'm in sword mode, here's the upgrades I'm using. When I'm in bow mode, here's the upgrades I'm using. I think that might have been more what was
Yeah. And
and
then
that was talked about during the stream. So
and I think a ramification of that is that when you let's say you've changed your secondary archetype, I don't know, and then you switch back to it later, you could still have a kit for that saved somewhere. You wouldn't have to like redo everything kit wise going back in. I don't know what that means about levels or anything, but in terms of how you've allocated points, if you have points in it, you know.
I'm confused. Sorry, back to this Kickstarter. I just read through all of the things. Everything that looks like it would be worth reselling says Kickstarter exclusive. So I have no clue what they're talking about. Like all the mounts, all the freehold skins, the pets, like are all labeled Kickstarter exclusive. So I have no idea. Monster coins aren't. You know, your alpha beta access isn't. Name reservation isn't. So I don't know what they're even answering in that
they
question.
specifically asked for emoji and character creation option tiers.
I don't know what they're talking about. So, anyways,
Maybe that was the summer bundle they were talking about with the emojis. And the answer didn't address the summer bundles, it specifically addressed the Kickstarter. So that, yeah, now that we've actually talked about that, I think I'm more confused than
actually here it says access to in-game chat emoji pack, and is not labeled as a Kickstarter. So I don't care about emojis. Okay.
Okay, well, there you go.
And again,
Buy your emojis.
If you want to teabag someone, that's fine. I don't care. It's a game. If you want to wave, dance, it's fine. If you want to spend money for those things, I don't know why you would, but go for it.
Guess you want to put emoji. Maybe people want to have them because they're going to be various different like useful symbols that would be used for making messages of the day or like adding different symbols into your legal documents and stuff that you wouldn't otherwise have access to. Like, I don't know if it's all just faces or if it's also got, you know, other sorts of stuff in there. But then it seems weird to sell that if you've got like actual utility stuff in the emojis pack. I don't know. I do not know. That is definitely a funny sort of question. Oh, and of course your favorite part of it, the ones they didn't answer. We have, let's see,
Mine. They didn't answer
1,
mine.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like 20 something people who it was either you asked too many questions or it wasn't clear enough. And then for mine, it was part of the group of, well, we couldn't get to all of them.
Speaking of that, I think, have you entered questions into the Reddit AMA?
Same exact one that I asked on stream.
Uh-huh.
That won't get answered.
Good job. How's it doing in terms of votes? I think that's kind of the thing I don't like
honestly,
about
I didn't look because
this version. Is that kind of normal too? This is the first time I've paid attention to uploading questions that you want to be asked.
I don't know.
Nero, did you put anything on? Did you put a question on Reddit?
Nah. I think other than trying to put in the single monthly ones, I'm just gonna wait until we can get them on for a show, and hopefully it'll be after Alpha 2 or during at least, and we'll have a hell of a lot more to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Lethality has a question there, I think. It might be a response though. What's the other thing? I was thinking, I mean, Ombwa should be seeing if he can get on our show before then. I mean, we would love to have him, of course.
I have this sneaking suspicion that anything lore is going to be really closely held to the chest.
We'll have to talk about lore.
No, I will.
Ask him. Oh, ha ha ha! Wow. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff he's not going to be able to say, and we would respect that. But we could talk about, his perspective of working there. And I'm saying, I'm reminding you, you should be working on getting some permissions to be on our show.
Wouldn't we ask?
Because somebody has interviewed Maggie, right? She didn't leak anything. So.
Yeah, but there's tons of stuff to interview Maggie about that wouldn't be giving things away.
There's tons of stuff. Ombwa, how many MMOs has Ombwa worked on? There's plenty of stuff to talk about with Ombwa.
I mean, if you just want to work on or talk about other MMOs he's worked on, you can just hit him up during other streams and stuff. Oh man, some stories you'll hear about Rift will break your heart.
Mm-hmm. And all kinds of stuff. I would have loved to have been able to have Matt Broom on while he was working on Ashes.
Well, it is almost 9:00. So is there anything else to talk about tonight? Oh, I did want to mention the very last question he took was a little disappointing. It was a question of whether seasons would occur under the ocean, so underwater. And the answer was very, very succinct, no. It, I think, is a little unfortunate. I would have loved to have seen, especially as you get more northern, kind of the pole areas of the map. I know it's not a wrapped map, but kind of where you would suspect colder climates to be, that there wouldn't be some change within the underwater areas. But I understand that's probably a lot of work, and they have plenty of other work to do just to get the game out. So,
I think we got to see a female Nakua, which we had not seen before. And he popped up the Valoon and kind of talked about them, and was maybe he it was a 3D model instead of a 2D model. And he was like, "Oh yeah, what do you guys think? Isn't this awesome?" And I'm sure Nero had the same reaction I did. Like, I'd like to see some of those magical tattoos thing with Bob's.
Yeah,
it's really.
I want to see the magic features.
Yeah,
we're still. Yeah, I had said in other places we're still at humans and other humans.
Yeah,
got to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
I could sneak in some questions from. Well, I mean, like, I'm curious about the process. How do you create lore in a world that includes so much players as content? Or I'm super curious about how the node system and the fact that you could, what is it like creating content or lore or story that could potentially never be seen? Depending on how the nodes, or is that a misperception, right? Or is there actually some sort of overarching guiding hand to this system where we have on the surface a very clear appearance as though we're driving the world, but the undercurrent is that we will hit these story points at some point It will just be a different order than another server.
Mhm.
I'm super curious about how that works, that narrative system. But
And what's even funnier for me though is the idea that he might not actually be able to tell us because that might give way too much away.
yeah, I'm just the node one has always fascinated me. Like, how do we have a system where you will create stuff that just never gets seen? I would hope the answer to that's no. That there is something that we don't get to see under the under the hood per se. That it's more of a shuffling of stories than not getting to see stories.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean,
no, I believe we will definitely be able to not see content. And it's not that nobody sees it. It might just be that the server we play on didn't
exactly.
see
That's
it.
what I was going to say. I think the vast majority of the content will be
Well,
seen.
that's what I mean.
Just
Is it more the order?
Not all on the same
Right.
server.
Is it more just there's an order difference of order that we all will see the same content each server, but it happens differently?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that there will be servers that don't see the content. It's going to be different content. But across all of the servers, on one of the servers, the content will be seen.
And again, the idea of blending crafted lore into a player created world fascinates me as well. We've talked about this a lot with EverQuest Next, Landmark, and that I've always thought there's just you can't have a game that's entirely player content. It just won't work. Players think they can do that, and then they can't really do that. So I'm just curious how you blend the two. All right, so we have to work on figuring out how to get Ombuan here to talk about those things, because apparently it is not boring, and it is also not boring. So, well, all right. I think we are at our time. So I think we'll be here next Sunday. There's nobody has anything to prevent that.
I mean, next Sunday we could be talking about Lord of the Rings, maybe.
We can bring it all in together.
Maybe.
We'll see.
Yeah, we need to get some more people playing so that there's more opinions involved. All right. Well, everyone have a great week. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you here next Sunday. And yeah, if you want to play Lord of the Rings, go to our Discord. There's a channel. Just let us know. We'll invite you to the kinship. See you.
See you later, everybody.